You get up here and you see how big the land is and how wide the horizons are and how much space you have between you and the sky, you know, and it's like, how could you not have space to dream up here? When our family moved up there, we bought a piece of land and we were growing organic potatoes, and there's nobody up there that was going to buy them. You know, my parents kind of looked around and were like, well, we got 5 kids and, you know, we can provide a lot of calories with potatoes, but maybe not balanced nutrition, you know, so we got to find a way to support our family.
And so we would load up the family passenger van, and every other week my dad would drive down to Boston and sell to chefs and stop at a few accounts in Maine along the way. And that was sort of the founding of Crown O Maine. It's very much back of the family van kind of business. Food distribution in the US, we've built this enormous system that operates with surprising efficiency. And we tend to want to villainize the system, but it is super efficient at making massive amounts of foods very affordable. But there's a big gulf, a huge gulf, between what might come from a dozen different family farms and what can be delivered every single day of the week on a truck. And part of Crown O Maine's role in the local food system is to be nimble enough to navigate that gulf.
Aroostook County is a very special and unique place. I mean, everybody says that about where they're from, but there traditionally have been a lot of contract potato growers for McCain's and other companies. So it's one of the few places you can go in Maine where you're really going to see large-scale production agriculture. I mean, these guys don't mess around. They can fill a whole potato truck in 10 minutes to ship out to the plants. I mean, that's the scale we're talking about. But I have to say, I think that there's a real poverty of options for a lot of these farmers. You know, like if McCain cuts contracts like they did one year without a lot of warning, then you see land go up on the block.
It's too bad you weren't here 2 weeks ago. I would have shown you where there was a farmer up here that was throwing 20,000 barrels of potatoes in the field. Good potatoes that he had. 20,000 barrels that Bob Terrio threw out in the field. Because McCain didn't want the potatoes because they planted too much and too many potatoes.
Are you getting paid for potatoes when you're growing conventional?
Okay, when I started the conventional potatoes, I was selling. I never made money. I'll tell you the truth. I never, because there was just no the expense was more than what you were bringing in.
So when you hand pick,
Yes. You pick up these too. Yes.
my parents used to make us pick the ones all the way down to this size.
Because that's worth more money than this.
This is worth more money than this.
Yes.
But with a harvester, right,
Yes.
they fall back through, and you're not going to go back and you're not going to hand pick them.
No.
So you can only use child labor, really.
Yeah.
To get the ones this size.
I remember everybody laughing at them, saying he was crazy. He didn't know what he was doing. He thinks he's gonna come up here and he's gonna do this and he's crazy. Well, I'll tell you what, I changed my mind pretty quick. I joined Jim. We started working together, and he was a wonderful person to work with. He's the one who put me back on my feet here. He's the one who put me where I am, because I can seriously tell you that I would be done. I wouldn't be farming no more if it wouldn't be for him.
This is barley. These two are barleys here. Started with 7 acres with your dad.
Why do you think that outsiders like my parents were able to convince longtime traditional farmers like your family to have anything to do with them at all?
Your dad, because it was your dad. Your dad had
What
that
about
bit.
it?
You just trusted him and followed him. And he told you enough to figure it out, and you would do it.
And you feel like he kept that trust?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in 2008, my dad passed away, and my family sat down and we decided that we wanted to keep Crown O Maine going, and I was the only sibling living in Maine at the time. And so I said, okay, sure, I'll keep this thing going. And it's been kind of a wild roller coaster ride since then. We grew it from a $380,000 business to a $1.7 million in 5 years. So now we have a bunch of employees and a couple of refrigerated box trucks, and we're shipping 5 days a week, year-round. We work with 200 farmers and food producers.
I'm gonna lean down on.
Marada's in the
retail for
office,
retail
and all summer she's gonna just call people and ask them what they need, if they can use this. She's gonna find homes for it. There is nothing, I mean, I'm glad she enjoys it. It's not thrilling work, but you have to be able to get up and do it every single day. That's the way you go from a family van full of potatoes to this year we're on track to sell $2 million worth of Maine products. And that started building the pathway, you know, and Northernville is a little bit of the same thing.
My parents were very adamant that only the best go out our front door, which meant there was a significant and growing pile of what we called kitchen potatoes, which as kids, 12-year-olds, you know, packing out these potatoes, we watched this pile of potatoes growing and we're like, no way, no way, Mom, we're not. And along the way they thought, well, if we just had a peeler, we could peel them up and sell them to like the university as peeled whole potatoes. And that was sort of the origin of what later became Northern Girl and a processing facility to make vegetables into a fresh cut line and a frozen line, and work with lots of producers to utilize that part of the crop that wouldn't otherwise be saleable.
By the time we're done running it through our line, they've been cleaned, peeled, processed, packed. So what goes out the door is food that can be used by food service in institutions or in the home. Whether you're putting something on a truck to ship to deliver somewhere, or you're turning it into packaged form to go into food service, they're all vehicles to access different markets. So part of the hope with that is if you diversify the options for where your product is going, well, you start to diversify the options for what you're producing as well.
Over the generations, we've primarily been a potato farm, and in more recent years, we've been trying to diversify into other crops that can be grown here as well.
Here you got ventilation coming in. These are all going to be full of beets, carrots, potatoes.
Northern Girl has been a great partner for us in these new crops that we're experimenting with, and the new products that they're creating. So we're real excited about it.
There's this narrative that we like to tell that's about the fact that we have placed our processing plant up here because this is where people know how to work. Like, that's something that, you know, is embedded in the culture up here. And this is a place where people know how to farm. That's something that's embedded in the culture up here. You know, there's an incredible skill set amongst the farmers up here, whether they're conventional or organic. So to us, well, we have some family and philosophical bent towards organic production. That doesn't take away from our respect for the farmers who are up here doing conventional production.
When you talk about changing a food system, you're really talking about changing people's participation, whether that's the eater or the grower or the middle people or the processor. You're trying to get people to change their minds and change their practices about what they think is important enough to see enacted on the land around them.
Can we get to a point, each of us along this value chain, where I can say, farmer, please charge me what you need for your cost of production, because I don't want you to go out of business, you know, and charge me that price. I want to get to the point where, like, we know what that is. I don't have to argue with it. And then can we find those buyers, or can we create those buyers through explaining what we're trying to do, who are willing to say, you know what, that's a great idea. I'm going to give you what you need because you're giving that guy what he needs.
Now, in the money state where I see richness, I see some people starting to grow more vegetables, you know? And when you look in the airplane over there, you see that. You see that vast. It's like you get shivers. It's like you look at that and it's like, my goodness, it's just opportunity. That's what it is.
One thing that I've kind of learned looking around at everybody who's engaged in this work trying to rebuild a food system that works for everyone involved is that change takes a long time. It doesn't take 2 or 3 years. It doesn't take the 3 years in a business plan. It takes 20 years to get where you are. When you start a farm, you want to envision 100-year-old oaks down the road and a post and beam barn that somebody put up at some point, and maybe you're the 7th generation, maybe you're the first one that's building it, but that's what you want, you know? So if we're gonna apply the same thing to the infrastructure pieces that we need, then we have to think about it. Like, how do we build the edifice that's gonna be there in 150 years? If it were simple and easy, like all of these things would exist.
We're lucky here in New England. We have rain and we have soil and we still have farming ability. And I think our consumer base is becoming very aware that we have these great resources and we should be using them to support the divesting of poor global systems that are both impoverishing our farmers and making our eaters really dependent on a global system of food, which may not be there in a decade or so, both because of political instability or because of climate change or because of the model of farming that relies on people getting poorer and poorer until we move production somewhere else. And I think that bringing different crops into the area as part of a regional food security effort and a regional produce our own food effort is an antidote to that problem.